Today's video is brought to you by our grading partners, EGS Grading Services, the place for custom, unique labels and new slabs, and PGX Comics, the Gen X place to get your comics graded and in case, shipping nationwide. Hello, and welcome to a very special episode of Codename YouTube Hero 2. Hi, I'm your presenter, Shabu Are You. This is a special episode in that I'm responding to a tag conducted by our good friends at Open by Chance YouTube channel and his wife, Lady Pop Hunter. And they basically wanted me to give my top personal issues of comics. Now, this is actually kind of difficult when you're known primarily as a G.I. Joe comics guy. So I decided to be creative with this. We're going to do my top 5 G.I. Joe comic books that kind of stick out above the rest. Of course, we have our usual suspects, but maybe a few that you may not have thought about. And then after I do that, I'm going to allocate that to one slot in my top 10 list, and then we'll go through other non-GI Joe books that have significant importance to me. So of course, being a GI Joe YouTuber, let's start off with the Joes. And before I go any further, that's what makes this hobby so much fun. It's not the tangible items that we pick up or collections and stuff. It's the people that we meet. And my recent trip to Toylanta, I acquired some new friends in Open by Chance and his amazing cool wife, and also Pixel Dan. I mean, hanging out with these guys after the whole outside of the con was kind of cool because it was just like going back in time and hanging out with your high school buddies, talking about nerdy stuff and just enjoying other people's collection. And that's the most important thing about this hobby, is the connections with people, various different backgrounds, and finding that commonality. And that's what makes this whole process so much fun to me, and is why I wanted to become a YouTuber. Is making that it's not so much of getting subscriptions and all that stuff. It's connecting with people, and I think that's what, especially this video, I want to symbolize that notion, is to get out there, say hi, introduce yourself. In this day and age where there's so many walls being put up, we need to make that effort to smash those walls down and to bring people together. So I am so happy that I got to see some cool toys, some cool comics, and meet some amazing people. So again, thank you so much, Open by Chance and Lady Pop Hunter. Now this is all from, they were tagged by Sticky Goose Comics, so they responded to that call out. So I'm kind of continuing that chain. So let's dive into the G.I. Joe books I picked for all of you guys. And again, to my regulars, these are going to be no surprise to a lot of you, but we're getting a lot of new people joining in. So, of course, we're going to start off with, the one that everyone's probably guessing, and that would be issue number 1. So, I have actually 3 issue number 1. So, this is issue number 1, which I got at 9.0 on. And what's important is that this is a newsstand. And now that trend of newsstand editions being so popular, I, of course, had no idea at the time. But there was also, and I reported this on my channel, a 9.9 being sold for $25K. Now, a 9.9 is like a unicorn. Very rarely you'll see a lot of 9.8s, but that 9.9 and that 10.0 is kind of like a unicorn. Yes, it's on the scale, but to attain that is absolutely few and far between. But I'm happy. Like I've told my regulars, is not so much the number, it's the book itself. And both these books present very well. And one of them I have displayed, um, and then I have one put away. So this is the 9.0 CGC. This one, when I was utilizing CGC, being a newbie, that's what you do. You follow what everybody else does. But since then I've changed my opinion on CGC. Not There's nothing wrong with them. It's just the fact that I have issues making a corporation fatter. I like to support the smaller grading companies like PGX and EGS because to me they symbolize more of that America's small business type of thing. And I want to be, and I see a danger in having one company having so much control over the entire market. So I think, and I've been saying this on my channel, it's very imperative for um, us to support these smaller grading companies just for that competition and to keep even CGC in check by having more than one company as a quote unquote standard for us. And this is how we present things and pass it down to the next generation. So G.I. Joe issue number 1, this is the 9.0 CGC. And then I had PGX grade, another one that I was able to pick up. Now, this one is a little bit disappointing in the sense that it's a 7.0, still looks amazing, still presents very well, and it's also a newsstand variant. But the issue is that the centerfold in this was slightly detached, like it came off the staple. So that's why I got a 7.0. The good thing is that, PGX does note that in here, and it has a purple label on it. Now I know with CGC that's the label of death, but it should not be the case. The book still looks great. It still has value, and I just think that it shouldn't be looked down upon just because it has a 7.0. And you're going to see that in a lot of my books. The books are amazing, iconic, but they're just a lower grade. And that's okay if you were in this for the right reasons. So I want to emphasize that as we go further. So the last issue, number 1, is actually kind of unique. It was part of those short-lived, kind of like those Archie mini comics. So this one is, of course, issue number 1 cover, but it contains issue 1 through 3. So on the back, you have issue number 2's cover. Now, at our age, as we're getting old, it's tough to read the print, but for a year or two, these were sold at the grocery checkout right next to Archie. I think these are probably going to skyrocketed in value because they were only out for a very, very short time. And there's I think 4 or 5 altogether of these mini comics. So as a GI Joe fan or as a fan in general, I would definitely take that extra step and try it. These are tough to find, believe it or not. And when you do, finding a grading company to be able to grade this is also difficult. EGS did this one, and I think they did a wonderful job. They put on a custom label, so you get different colors or different photographs, and you'll see in the background of my collection, I hang up a lot of the EGS books because of their custom labels. What I like about how they go about it is kind of like an artist. So they use yellow. I didn't want to go with the graphic one because there was so much space with these mini comics. So they decided for me to use a yellow label because of all the yellow, it's kind of like it's blending seamlessly with the cover without it sticking out because we do have a lot of open space here. So EGS takes that extra level to actually sit back and consider what the objective is and how the presentation of what they grade. And I like that. I like that a small company takes pride in their work and goes that extra step. And what makes this book a little bit more special is that it has Larry Hama's signature. I've collected Larry Hama's signature, and I've gotten, as my regulars know, message and converse with Larry Hama, especially around issue number 283 when he introduced a character that's kind of loosely based on me. The character is Mongoose. If you want, definitely read up on Mongoose. And basically, it's kind of like my backstory. And it was kind of cool because Larry asked me some questions. Little did I know that it was going to be used for a new G.I. Joe character. So for the first time in 40 years since being a G.I. Joe fan, I finally had a G.I. Joe that looked like, acted like, came from the same background as I did. So Mongoose is my G.I. Joe. Issue number 1. So the next one is, again, everybody could guess. After issue number 1, what is the second most important issue in the G.I. Joe run? Regardless if it's Marvel, IDW, what have you. And that would be issue number 21, the silent issue. Now, what I did, my approach on this was I wanted to get a first print direct edition. And of course, these aren't 9.8s, 9.0s. I got a 6.5 on this one. And I'm totally happy and okay with that. The book looks and presents wonderfully. PGX did a clean and press for me for all my books because I do open boxes for them. So the fact that the cover, it gives it that shine. Of course, there's a little bit of tick marks on the side, which has knocked this book down significantly, but they were able to clean the cover and the back cover to where it looks absolutely amazing on display here in the retro room. So G.I. Joe issue number 1, first print, direct edition. And the other thing to take note of is that issue number 21 had various different prints. So it's important to know what Spider-Man's head looks like and what color it is. The second and third prints, you'll get the black Spider-Man, the symbiote Spider-Man, so to speak, with the Venom prior to him becoming Venom. So this one is just a regular old classic Spider-Man, and then the newsstand edition. As I mentioned previously, newsstand is the new rage because of the quote-unquote scarcity. But you got to think about it. In the 80s, that was the main way of getting comics, was a newsstand edition. So especially in those 80s and late 70s, there's a lot more newsstand editions than there are direct-to-market editions. I think Dazzler was the first direct-to-market comic, and you think about that. So for a long time, newsstand was the way a lot of people got their comic books. But the reason why it's important to me is because when I was a kid, I'd ride my bike about a mile to the 7-Eleven, get a Slurpee, and pick up comics. And that's why I kind of target newsstands a little bit more, because that's what I remember riding my bike as a kid. It was a stew ham Huffy. And then, then of course later my parents got me a Giant, like a Diamondback and all those things that the rich kids have. So my first bike was a good old Huffy. So that's what I think about. And when I pick up these newsstand editions is, riding my bike to the 7-Eleven. But again, such an iconic issue. And issue number 21, I think, is probably one of the top 10 most impactful comics, regardless, in the last 50 years. I mean, this was a game changer and affected the entire comic industry. That's why this book should not be taken lightly. And it's what you're kind of teaching to these modern comic kiddos, is like, learn your history. Hey, it's great that you love Todd McFarlane, but there were other people before Todd McFarlane and Rob Liefeld that they were influenced by. So Larry Hama is definitely, the person that influenced. I mean, you look at Deadpool. Deadpool, to me, is just a talking version of Snake Eyes, but I digress. So issue number 21. So again, this is the natural progression. You have issue 1, you have issue 21. So what's the next most impactful G.I. Joe comic of all time? that would be issue number 155, the last Marvel G.I. Joe out there. And what's interesting is this book had been eluding me. You got to remember, I started doing my broadcasting in 2015. I had most of the Marvel run, but especially during that dark time when GI Joe was an afterthought. I mean, look at all these Facebook groups that popped up, and everybody's coming out of the woodwork declaring their GI Joe fanism. Oh, but for a long time there it was like an abandoned amusement park. I mean, guys like me, HCC 788, Forum BX 257, there was very little out there. And but since I started, I wanted to complete the whole Marvel run. I had about, I'll be honest, 1/3 left over. So I was able to acquire the remaining 2/3, except for this book. This book was the one that eluded me for most of this that since 2015. But I was able to, I mean, just the raw books were going over $100. So I decided to flip the script. I was looking for a graded book, but I knew that 9.8 would be, stupid. So I looked for lower graded books, somewhere. I essentially paid the price for a raw copy for this graded 7.5. And it looks absolutely amazing. The thing is, back in the 90s, the print quality on books was absolutely atrocious. Even Marvel and DC, and we all complain about Valiant, but Marvel and DC still had the same issues. The paper quality was actually horrendous. So for me to get a 7.5 on this book that I know, and I ended up paying as much as a raw book, it was a no-brainer. And I happily have this book displayed because I was so happy when I finally held this book, because I didn't have it as a kid. I was in high school playing football, wrestling, and running track. And so my interest shifted by the time G.I. Joe ended. And I've always bit myself in the foot for not picking up this issue. But now I finally was able to acquire it. So this completed, ironically, my G.I. Joe run for the Marvel run. So it's very symbolic to me, and that's why I have it as occupying one spot in my top 5 G.I. Joe list. So the next book we're going to take a look at is actually interesting, but I don't know why, but I love picking up. This is probably going to be the third book. One of them is actually at PGX right now being graded. So I have two with me here. And I'm talking about G.I. Joe issue number 75 with the Bondage Baroness cover. I've always loved this cover. I mean, you get hitting at that adolescent age, what are those growing out of the Baroness? I mean, I love this cover. It's just one of those things that I get a big laugh at. And I recently, at that Toylanta, I found another raw. So we have two first print direct editions, and the one that's being graded right now is a newsstand version. There's not, I mean, monetarily, it's not like, but that's not the point. It's the point that I love this cover because it makes me think of being an adolescent boy and be like, oh my God, Baroness is so hot. And the cool thing is, the Baroness is actually my wife's favorite character. So she enjoys the Baroness as much as me. So it's something that we enjoy together. So that's why issue number 75, sticks out a little bit more than the others. And I end up picking up a loose copy whenever I see one available. So issue number 75. And it kind of coincides with my little Baroness shrine that I made up here. So I know my regulars have seen it, but we have different versions of the Baroness, and especially her statue. And then, of course, the retro classified line of her. So it kind of coincides with that. And plus, a lot of people see in my videos, there's the Jamie Tinsdale drawing of the Baroness there. So issue number 75 is definitely one that I have fond memories with. All right, so of course I'm going to save the best for last. And I've kind of hinted about this a little bit earlier when I was talking about the mini comic. But the most important G.I. Joe comic that I have, and probably the most comic book that I own, is the Larry Hama signatures. What makes these important is that, again, these are coming after issue number 283, where I kind of, Larry had seen my videos, heard about me through Diana Davis, who's the IDW head researcher on the IDW GI Joe team. So the fact that, Larry Hama knows who the hell I am, and the whole point of starting my channel was the fact that I felt that Larry Hama was not getting the respect he should rightfully deserve with these modern comic kiddos in this modern comic world. I was kind of heartbreaking to see or learn about Larry being asked to appear in these cons and being kind of put in the back corner somewhere, like, forgotten, where he should be front and center. I mean, his impact and contributions to comics are so important. And the fact is, G.I. Joe's, the essence, the heart of G.I. Joe is that it's a collection of diversity. People of all different backgrounds, faiths, colors, creeds, coming together to defeat an evil. And evil has no color, creed, or faith. Evil is evil, period. There's no one of anything that is the definition of evil. That's the essence of what G.I. Joe is all about. And I hope people don't lose the sight about that anybody could be a G.I. Joe if your heart and your beliefs are correctly aligned. And for Larry Hama to know who I am and to personally send me books that he autographed and is absolutely astonishing. So this one was actually sent for a middle person by the name of Walter. Walter just so happens, hey, this is for Shabir. And Larry was so happy to sign it. So this is issue number 275. We got a 9.8. And what's cool is PGX puts kind of like a gold, like a copper type of label to differentiate the signatures, their signature series. And we also have EGS, who did, this is their old slabs. So this is gone, but look at that. The nice color. We got a Snake Eyes and Cobra Commander. I'll bring up a picture of it there. They did an amazing job with this one as well. And I just think that having Larry write to me, I have one more Larry Hama signature. So what I like is he dates everything. So from 2017 onward to 2022, I have at least one Larry Hama signature during those years. But I just wanted to bring these two because the other ones were just Larry Hama. This one, to Shabir from Larry Hama. And that's just the bee's knees to me. So that completes my one spot. I just wanted to get G.I. Joe so we can look at some other books that are non-G.I. Joe. So here we go with those. Alrighty, so we got number 10. So I allocated all the G.I. Joes to number 10 spot. So now we could break down the non-G.I. Joe titles. Now, as you can see, it's the end of the day. I went to work, and then after I came back from work, I wanted to finish off this video. So, I apologize for it being a little bit darker than usual, but it kind of makes sense when we look at our next book. The next book would be Ghost Rider Marvel Spotlight number 6. So I'm a big Ghost Rider fan. I love Ghost Rider. He's, there's just something about the motorcycle, the skull, heavy metal. I don't know. I love this. And of course, Marvel Spotlight number 5, Ghost Rider's first appearance, is way out of there in the price range. And I tell people on my channel, especially, often the next best things. That's why the gem in my, besides doing G.I. Joe stuff, I try to showcase what is the next best option for those of us that work for a living, a 9 to 5, that have a mortgage, that have other financial big boy responsibilities that these teen kiddos do not have. And they stay at home with mommy and daddy and flip comic books for a living. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but at the same time, for the majority of us Gen Xers, those are our responsibilities. So that's why I try to target and showcase the next best thing. And this, you get a retelling of Ghost Rider's origin, his second appearance ever this book I think is going to definitely shoot up in value. I like this book so much that I got two copies of it. So I have a 5.0 and a 6.0. Not bad considering, a Bronze Age era key. But yeah, Ghost Rider on Marvel Spotlight number 6. So the next book is actually kind of quirky and interesting. But so for number 8, I picked She-Hulk number 40, the issue that got everybody heated because they teased that She-Hulk will be jump roping or doing stuff, but it is so funny. And John Byrne, that's the other thing is revisiting these iconic '90s runs with our adult eyes. So I rereading this whole John Byrne She-Hulk series has been excellent. It is so funny, so witty. I just can't believe it didn't get the proper attention that it did. It's one of those hidden gems that I think now is really worthwhile to revisit this entire run. And, you know, this book, especially, I think, is really interesting. And it's, even like loose raw copies are going close to $300. So to get this graded at a 9.4, I was totally ecstatic about that. And it just looks beautiful, and I think the artwork on it is just nice. I like the Jessica Rabbit thing in the corner, like an homage to that. And think about that time, that era back in 1992. So this one brings back a lot of good memories in my life, but also a appreciation for the John Byrne She-Hulk run, and the fact that this issue had every adolescent boy going crazy. So I just thought that that was kind of funny and quirky, and that's why I picked this as my number 8 book. So for number 7, again, I've always tell people it's not the number it's what's the significance of the book in question. I often think that in modern comic world that's been losing um, that the real point in this hobby is all these people are looking for those 9.8s, and it's like a commodity. And while there is monetary value to these books, it's also the fact of the significance of it as far as the evolution of comics. I think that's what's important. So for my number 7 book, I picked Thor number 168. This got a lowly 2.0, but the reason why I picked this book is because it has the team of Stan Lee and Jack the King Kirby. So any Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and also it's Galactus's origin story. So we all know that there's a speculation that Galactus may be the new big bad coming in the MCU after Thanos and stuff. He is the big threat. And Secret Wars, if you remember, we have Secret Wars slated in the MCU. What happens at the end of Secret Wars? So could there be? We don't know. But I think that again, 1969, The Summer of Love. I mean, this book I think is wonderfully done, and yeah, sure, it's a little bit faded in the front, but it's complete, it's intact, and I got a 2.0. So those are all big wins as for me. So I think this is a really good number 7 book on this top 10 list. All right, so for my number 6 book that I think that I treasured is, and now we're going to go through books that directly are entwined with childhood, especially the typical Gen Xer, 80s kid, or early 90s kid. And that would be none other than The Adventures of Super Mario. Again, we have Mario the movie coming out. This book has been skyrocketing in value. It's Super Mario's first appearance, even though Mario as a character made a appearance in a Atari comic back in 1981, I believe. Um, but this would be the first Super Mario Brothers, or the Super Mario that we know today. So, you know, and also the Valiant, that's what another thing is. Of course, in the early 90s, the paper quality was absolutely shit. And these Valiants were the worst of the worst. So, this book, whether, for that to survive is absolutely astonishing, because most of the time kids had it. I mean, not that GI Joe and all other stuff, but more so cheap paper quality in the hands of kids. I mean, this thing didn't have a prayer to come out, but I was lucky to pick up one, and a 7.0. This is a wonderful 7.0, and I have to compliment PGX's cleaning and press service. They did a wonderful job with this book to really bring it out, to get, you have a little bit of that lightness on it, but they did a really good job getting some of that initial grime and dirt that was on the cover when I picked this up. I knew this was going to be a work in progress, and that's why I trusted PGX to do that for me. And their cleaning and press service, second to none. This book probably would have gotten either a 5 or 4 prior to their clean and press service. So this is a wonderful number 6 for me. All right, so number 5 would be Star Wars number 2. Now this is the first appearance of Obi-Wan Kenobi, Han Solo, Chewie, the Millennium Falcon. There's so many first appearances on this one. Of course, issue 1 gets a lot of the hype. But issue number 2, especially during the Obi-Wan series, kind of picked up in a lot of momentum. Now, this is actually the Whitman edition. So it's a second print, but I think even the Whitman editions are picking up a lot of momentum. And again, do I really care? No, because I have the first appearance of Obi-Wan and all those iconic characters in the franchise that started everything. So this is really significant and important to me, and that's why it is at the number 5 spot. And again, PGX did a wonderful job with this as well. They did a nice clean and press. I'm a little sad it got only a 7.5, but then again, it still looks and displays beautifully. So that's why this one gets my number 5 spot. Number 4 is a book that kind of was under the radar all this time, but then there was some inkling that Amazon was going to do a series on it, and all of a sudden there was a spike in it. But it's amazing how I picked this book up for less than $8, and then all of a sudden, once the spike shot up, this book's value skyrocketed, and I'm talking about Voltron number 1. And this is the again, newsstand. Now this book is a pain in the ass because of that white, of course, white cover. And PGX really, from what I heard, they worked really hard on this book because it was really dirty. I did not know. I was expecting a 2 or a 3 or what have you. So just to get a 5.0 and having it look and present as beautiful as this one does, that's a win, guys. And I'm just glad that, again, another childhood first appearance of, something that I love very much, and that's Voltron Defenders of the Universe. So this is definitely a wonderful pickup. And the fact is, I bought the raw book for under $10, and I bet you the eBay seller who I picked it up was probably kicking himself, because literally the week after the book arrived, it skyrocketed. So I feel bad for him, at the same time I'm happy for me. So Voltron number 1. Number 2, I mean, this is not his first appearance, but it's the second appearance, but it's the first Masters of the Universe. And the DC, I know Star picked up the series afterwards, but initially He-Man's first appearance was in DC Comics, and this is the first ongoing Masters of the Universe series. So again, another childhood classic, another great key issue, and 6.5. It's okay. I really don't care. it's like I said, it looks and presents beautifully. So I really think that that's the win, to me. Yeah, Battle Cat there, Tila, Skeletor, Beastman. I mean, you have all of the greats there. Castle Grayskull in the background, and Merman's back there, and our good friend Simple Tricks and Nonsense. So check out their YouTube channel. But they did a cosplay of Merman, so it's kind of like I'm so happy that I got this book, and I have to thank our friends at Famous Faces and Funnies that picked up a collection and kind of put this aside for me, knowing that you might want this one. So I'm really happy for that. Like friends looking out for me in the comic community, picking up, passing along things that they knew I would like. That's what I think about with this book. Not only the childhood memories but the fact is somebody helped me to get this book, and they valued my friendship that much that they looked out for me. So um, this definitely earns its spot. Number one should be no surprise to my regulars. I have featured this book many, many times, and recently I did it. Because the IDW GI Joe run has stopped, I wanted to look at other Gen X franchises and do comic recaps. So Transformers number one is my number one non-GI Joe favorite book. This is a newsstand edition with the 9.0. So I got the first appearance of GI Joe in a 9.0 and the first appearance of Transformers in a 9.0. And how cool is that? So many first appearances of Optimus, the Autobots, Megatron. I mean, Transformers and GI Joe are one and two. I mean, after Star Wars, naturally, but that's why I have this as my number one favorite comic book. And I'd like to thank our good friends at Open by Choice, Lady Pop Hunter, and I thank you so much for allowing me to participate in this. I think it was a lot of fun. It was actually challenging, but the cool thing about the doing this is like I like watching other people's top 5, top 10, top 20, whatever, because you get to be like, oh, I could see that. I didn't think about that, So to have it flipped around when it's pointing at you, I think it's not fun. It's work because you're like, oh, I want to pick that one, but then maybe this one. So you have to do your due diligence. So that's kind of the process of doing these types of videos. I more enjoy watching other people's top 10 lists or so on and so forth. Anyway, thank you so much for letting me participate. And we'll send this back to you guys. Thank you. Bye.